All right, we're here with head women's basketball coach Michelle Bento-Jackson, kind of previewing a couple key games they have coming up this weekend against Cal State East Bay and Cal State Dominguez Hills. Coach, just starting off, let's kind of review the recap. You guys got back into the CCA playoff hunt with these last couple weekends. You've won 3 of your last 4. Other than that Chico game, it seems like there's been some really positive momentum. Just kind of talk about the last couple games and what your takeaways are from that going into this weekend.
Right. Yes. Well, as you mentioned, we had won 3 in a row and obviously built some momentum and some confidence within our team. Going out to the Chico State game, we jumped out to a big lead and really gained the momentum. And unfortunately, the key in the Chico State game was we just really were not efficient on the defensive end. And Chico's they're a mature team, they're an experienced team, they're a quality team, and so they got themselves back in the game. And unfortunately, I really attribute that to the lack of our defensive effort.
And so, just talking, you said the lack of defensive effort was kind of a killer in that Chico game. Shooting also seemed to be a bit of an issue as well, just in terms of just the ability to knock down shots after that really strong first quarter.
Right.
Do you think that comes down to shot selection, or do you think that's just something that, sometimes you have a poor shooting night and you got to make up for it on the defensive end?
Well, I think it's likely a combination of both. We did have a good film session afterwards, and that's exactly what I talked about was our shot selection on the offensive end. But and we missed a lot of buckets in the paint. We had a lot of scoring opportunities for high percentage shots that we just did not finish. But in saying all of that, really my emphasis to the team was still on the defensive end, because as I always say, you just don't know when you're not going to have a great shooting night. And we've had plenty of them this year where we really truly got to be consistent and rely on the defensive end. And I thought the Chico game was an indication of we allowed our lack of offensive production beginning in the second quarter to affect our defense. And that's just something obviously that we cannot allow happen. Our defense has to be consistent whether we're shooting well or not.
So going into this weekend, we have Cal State East Bay coming up on Thursday. What are going to be some of the key points of note with that team and what we can expect from them?
Right. Well, I think it's going to be a different game this time. It's been a while since we've played them. They're coming off of 2 wins themselves. They captured 2 wins this past weekend. So, we're back in Lumberjack Arena for these next 4 games, and obviously that's a huge plus for us. We need to take advantage of that. But first and foremost is East Bay. And, again, just the shot selection we're focusing on and just being much more aggressive on the offensive end. But really all I'm going to talk about these next couple days here is on the defensive end and just being a lot more intense, and we're not making our opponents uncomfortable, which is something that we talk a lot about on the defensive end, and we just got to do a much better job of that going down the stretch. Here we are with 6 games left. Hopefully it's going to be more than that, but we got to take care of business here at home.
And that was something I meant to bring up at the beginning of the press conference. Was it is probably one of the more tighter CCA races we've seen in a while. Going into it, only 3 weekends left of the season. 2 of those last 3 weekends are at home. Only 2 games back of that final playoff position with 6 games to play. How important is it that you capture momentum these next 2 weeks, especially at home with home court advantage?
It's imperative. It's absolutely critical, and I think we're very fortunate that we do have this stretch of 4 home games here in Lumberjack Arena. We have been a better home team. I don't say that necessarily in an optimistic way because we have to be just as well on the road, but we need to clearly take advantage of these 4 games at home and not sit back and, needing help from other opponents, meaning we just got to take care of ourselves and focus on 1 game at a time.
And then one more question on my end. I also know this week there's a couple just important kind of markers for these games. Thursday is Pediatric Cancer Night, and then Saturday is that blackout game. Just kind of talk about those a little bit and the significance of those games.
Right, yes. As you mentioned, Thursday night is called Go for the Goal, and it's for pediatric cancer. Children, unfortunately, who have either survived or are going through cancer. You will notice that our girls will be wearing yellow shoelaces that night, and we ask all of our fans to wear yellow that night in regards to pediatric cancer. And then moving forward to Saturday, the month of February being Black History Month. So once again, it's blackout night. white, asking all of our fans to wear black, and just really show the celebration and honor all of those in the African American community who have been such leaders for us in the country. Here on our campus, we're going to be acknowledging some faculty and staff. So really two very important nights for us this week as we honor a lot of folks.
Coach, one thing I wanted to kind of address, like we talked about just the importance of down the stretch. I mean, including the Chico game, and obviously just shook out this way. I think of your last 7 games, including that past Chico game, 5 of them are against the top 5 teams in the conference. So knowing that, you really kind of have to obviously probably pull off maybe 1 or 2 upsets to really remain in the hunt. How do you obviously the season kind of builds to it, but how do you meet that challenge with this team, knowing that that's kind of where the stakes are as far as keeping the season alive?
Well, I tell the team all the time, it doesn't matter if it's Dominguez Hills, San Marcos, who are right now obviously at the top of the conference, or any other team in our conference. There's just certain things that we need to do as far as how we need to play. And I'm just very confident that if we do those things consistently, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. And so really the focus has been more on us, not so much our opponents. I mean, certainly there's different teams. We prepared for personnel and scouts, no question about it. But we have to do things, and I'm going to keep continuing to talk about on the defensive end because I just know that's where it's going to be at the end of the day.
Maybe one thing I just want to go on the positive side. Obviously, prior to the last game, you guys developed this terrific trend of second half, just really emphatic second half success. I know Chico's, just tougher test for that maybe, and you alluded to some of the shooting struggles. But how do you kind of keep up that trend? I mean, obviously that's a terrific structure, a terrific trend to have as a basketball team. But how do you keep that up in these final 6 games?
Well, we've been trying to get the message across to our team, since the beginning of the year. We have, obviously, as I've mentioned all year, just a lot of new players. And for them just to have the understanding of how you start and end quarters. It's not just the beginning of the game. It's not just the end of the game, but it's also the end of the first quarter, the beginning of the third quarter. I mean, as I always say, you send a message and you can or cannot set the momentum in those situations. And, for example, we had, I believe it was the third quarter at the Chico State game, last possession of the game, we get a great layup. You got to capitalize on those moments to really, as I keep saying, just gain the momentum either at the beginning or the end. And I think the team is slowly starting to understand the importance of that. Yes, of course, all possessions are important, but we really want to capitalize on those situations.
And maybe lastly, I know you're kind of maybe alluding to some of the half-court possessions there, but your transition was another great part of those 3 wins. How do you keep that trend up? I know it's obviously transition buckets are I feel like that's something that only gets harder as the quality of competition is higher maybe.
Right.
But how do you maintain that great transition that's obviously been spurred by Devin, who has just been tremendous in not only getting rebounds, but pretty much transitioning those rebounds immediately into assists?
Right.
How do you keep that momentum going?
Well, we've watched a lot of film, and what I mean by that is we've shown the girls how much success we have had in transition. And basically, we just always want to have the mindset of being the aggressors. Like I told them before every game, the most aggressive team on both ends of the floor usually has a great chance of coming out ahead. And in your point, transition is obviously being aggressive. And we want to put the pressure on our opponents and in the open court situation, get as many scoring opportunities as we possibly can. And that's certainly an area that I think we have grown and progressed in throughout this season. And we certainly need to continue capitalizing that this week.
And maybe lastly, I don't want to just be redundant, but you alluded to that internal focus. But do you just think with these games, I mean, do you still see those same keys as being keys to victories in these 6 games? Do you think there's, is it that bread and butter of just transition, being strong defensively, or is there maybe some changes, some tinkering that does need to happen in those final 6 games?
No, it's consistency. Earlier in the year we were talking about execution of scouts and understanding the importance of that and how to be effective in those moments. And we've done that well in spurts. But as I always say, it's usually a slippage on the defensive end that any quality team is going to take advantage of that. So as soon as you have a mistake or a mishap on the defensive end, we're going to get exploited. And, obviously we want to be playing our best basketball right now. And so again, it's just, we've done that in spurts, but it's just learning and maturing to do that all the time and not allowing maybe your own individual lack of success at that moment dictate what type of defender you are. And so really just keeping your focus on the teammate next to you and our team as a whole rather than yourself. And again, just putting all your emphasis on the defensive end. We got to play with a lot more intensity.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Coach. Earlier you mentioned about how keeping the momentum is really important, and I noticed in the Chico game, obviously, you started off really well. What would you say to your team about just keeping that up, staying uncomfortable and making sure that momentum lasts throughout the game?
Right. Well, it's a lot of different things, but as we watched the film session for when we did go up, I believe 20 points there in the Chico game, I actually still didn't like our defense. During those moments, Chico just happened to miss shots, but it wasn't because we were taking them out of what they wanted to do. And so it's basically you allow a team to get momentum and confidence on their end, or you take a 20-point lead and you make it a 25-point lead, and just really keeping our foot on the gas pedal and just having that really intensive mindset to bury a team when you have the opportunity to. And we're not quite there, and that's something that we're lacking, just that fight and that really just push and continue to make it even stronger on the defensive end. So something we're still trying to get across to this ball team.
Yeah, I saw, there was a sign of improvement, but obviously, it has to last throughout the game. Another question you alluded to earlier about how the team sort of needs to stay focused on what they're doing and not other teams. How do you it's obviously easy to get lost in other teams' results and what's going on around the conference. How do you keep them focused on just their team and taking care of business?
Well, I can't control, the girls on social media watching the conference standings. I mean, of course, any player, any competitor is going to do those types of things. I think that's only normal. But as far as us coaches and the message that we're sending to our girls, it's no secret. It's crunch time. We have 6 games to hopefully put ourselves in position here, and we do have to take one at a time. So it's not so much that we talk about what other teams have to do or not do or what we're hoping for. As I always say, we want to control our own destiny, and really trying to get this team to understand, those losses back at the beginning of the year on the road, at that time we talked about the magnitude of those games and that we don't want those type of situations to kind of kick us in the butt, so to speak, come the end of February. And so there's just so much learning and understanding big picture. But at this point in time, our sole focus right now is on East Bay and to give them the best shot that we can possibly give them.
Yeah, that's good. One game at a time. And my last question is, I've noticed how JC's role on the team has really increased throughout the season, and she's developed as a player. I mean, I see like a new career high most often, and I just want to ask you what you have to say about that.
JC, I give JC a lot of credit. She wasn't playing much, as you said, at the beginning of the season, and I've really, really challenged her on the defensive end. And I think she's made a conscious effort in 2 areas, primarily getting herself in the gym and making sure she gets shots up and working on her game. But on a day-to-day basis in practice, the kid has made a great effort to become a better defender and really made that a priority. And that's really what kind of got her going as far as getting more into the lineup. And she's earned this playing time, and she's made the most of it. And I just give her a lot of praise because obviously she was a huge part of our Chico game. And I gave her credit yesterday because as much as she had a great offensive night, I didn't want her defensive effort to go unnoticed because I thought she also did a great job on the defensive end.
All right, cool. Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
One more question for you, Coach, as we were just touching on individual performances. Last time you guys played East Bay at East Bay, Madison Perry had a really big game, 23 points, 14 rebounds, shot 90% from the field and 66.7% from 3. I was just curious to see, she kind of carried the offense in that game. Is that something you're looking to do this week, kind of drive the offense through her, or is it spread it around, different approach this time through against East Bay on Thursday?
We need contribution from everybody. As I always tell the team, if we only have 1 or even 2 players that we're really relying on scoring, I just don't think we're going to be as strong as an offensive team. So obviously Madison Perry, I'm sure she's on every opponent's scouting report. But now, we got more contribution from others on our team, as you just mentioned, J.C. Bain, and whether it be Zion Smith, Sarah. I mean, we just have to spread the ball, and we have to make sure that the ball doesn't stick, as I always say, and get everybody involved. To me, we're a much better team if everyone's got 9, 10, 11 points, and we have one person who, her individual stats are great, but that doesn't make us a better team. So that's the focus of us offensively.
Great, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.